Hi, good afternoon and good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us on this webinar, Black Friday, all about how you can maximise your online revenue this Black Friday. Great to have you all here and fantastic to see such a wide range of people from retailers around the globe on today's session. Just in terms of today, in terms of speakers, just to introduce myself, my name is Tom Platt. I'm a Senior Account Manager here and I head up Product Sales. I work with a wide range of retailers all around the globe, helping them prepare for their biggest and spikiest events, using our tool solutions and processes as well. So I work with a lot of people, have done for 5 years, helping them to prepare their websites for events like Black Friday. We're really fortunate today to be joined by one of our colleagues and Senior Performance Architects, James Billingham. James Billingham has a wide history of working in the performance sector, working with a range of big businesses on behalf of people like IBM, working across the gaming, banking and e-commerce industries, helping people prepare their sites, tune their sites so that they're as fast and performant and as scalable as possible during key periods. So a lot of experience from James. Just to let everyone know, we will be doing a Q&A session at the end of today, so if anyone does have any questions at any point, please do get in touch. Be looking forward to taking them at the end of the session. So yeah, please fill in the question box at the bottom corner and we'll look forward to sort of answering any questions you have at the end. In terms of just giving everyone a little bit of a background in terms of what we're going to do today. So I'll be discussing sort of just Black Friday in general, what we saw across the industry last year. And before going through some tips and some best practices that have been created by our team here in terms of how you can get ready, we'll then hand over to Jeff Cattle at JD Williams, who's going to be giving a case study of how they prepared their website for a real sort of peak in traffic, followed by another bit of sort of just deep dive on what JD Williams did, and we will again obviously end with that Q&A session. So yeah, great to have you all here and looking forward to getting started. So just to set the scene here really, Black Friday 2016, absolute massive year for retail, 12% sales increase, so Black Friday has been growing at pace year on year on year, and last year was 12% bigger than it has ever been before, with UK retailers taking a total of £123 billion across a 24-hour period. Really interestingly, we saw that online traffic increased by 220%, and I think 2016 was really the first year we saw the real overtaking of desktop by mobile. So mobile really key, really prominent last year in terms of what was going on. We can see there 1.2 million apps downloaded on the day. Of course, those won't all be apps from shopping sites, but a lot of them will be. A lot of it may also be sort of Black Friday deals on applications. So a lot of app downloads on the day, really busy day for the Google stores and the Apple stores as well. So really big day, and mobile really started to overtake and being a key sort of consumer device for a lot of the sales taking place online during Black Friday. Sadly though, I think it was the Guardian reported that around 15 major UK brands had pretty big public outages. So still seeing outages across the industry last year, a lot less than normal, and certainly a lot less outages than we've seen in previous years. But again, the Guardian referencing there that over 15 major retail sites had issues. We did a really interesting piece of research last year where we worked with about 20 retailers around the globe assessing how ready they were, and we found about 50% of the people we spoke to weren't fully prepared, and we helped them get prepared. But essentially, yeah, 50% of the people we spoke to last year, sort of weren't where we would consider to be fully prepared for Black Friday. So really big event, lot of traffic, lot of revenue, really important for retailers around the globe. What can we expect this year? I think it's really interesting what we're going to see this year. This was a really interesting study done quite recently by PwC, and what they're expecting to see, certainly 83% of consumers primed to spend more this year. This is, of course, a study in the States, but would expect a similar translation to here in the UK. So we're expecting an increase in spend. Interestingly, that increased spend is going to go on potentially family and second self and not friends. So don't be expecting to get too many gifts from your friends this year. Not going to expect to get more than normal, but yeah, certainly an increase in spend there. And interestingly, the lion's share of this increase is actually expected to be from the high earners. So that is individuals earning over 60k or more. And we can see there, you know, what that spending is going on, and the majority on apparel, followed by gift cards and toys, personal electronics. So you see where that spend's going to go, and you know, there's a real opportunity here for retailers to capitalise on the fact that consumers, and some consumers, particularly the wealthier ones, are looking to spend more this year. In terms of what it's starting to shape up, some really interesting pieces going on in the UK already. We do expect, and have been seeing for a while, that retailers are extending the shopping period. So certainly Black Friday is no longer a one-day event. Cyber Monday, absolutely huge day, and we tend to see really high sales throughout the whole weekend in between. Last year, we started to see the emergence of retailers spreading this out over a week-long period. So we started to see that real spreading out of the season, and this year we've seen a real extreme of this with, you know, people like TalkTalk already running their potential, you know, so-called Black Friday sales. We've seen eBay launching on the 1st, followed by Halfords on the 2nd. Really interestingly though, Amazon have kept things quite quiet this year. You know, previously they've done sort of 12 days of deals, which has been really interesting, really successful. We would expect them to do something similar again, but again, who knows what Amazon have planned for this year. All we can say is that they've seen their 12 days of deals go really successfully, so we expect them to sort of continue on that trend. You know, Tesco's coming slightly earlier, and Superdrug still slightly earlier as well, just doing sales ahead of that key trading period. So really interesting there to see the spreading out of this period. Certainly going to make a big difference in terms of how quickly we see the spikes ramp up. We're expecting a much sort of busier month in general, but potentially less spiky activity for those retailers who are spreading this out. So really interesting to see the retailers doing that. We are as well this year certainly seeing the rise of the sort of deal bots, the deal websites that savvy shoppers are using. If you do want to get deals, you know, these are some good sites to look at. But we're certainly seeing these cause issues throughout the year for some retail businesses. Things like hotdeals.co.uk, if your deal is to go viral on Hot Deals, they do have a really interesting WhatsApp group which will ping all the members immediately when a sale starts. So we can see these deal finders, Hot Deals, Tech Radar, and Black Friday Online driving real sharp sudden spikes in traffic if you are to get featured on them. So one to potentially look at as an avenue for marketing, and certainly one to be aware of if you do wish to go viral on any of those sites, that it could cause you some issues. So certainly one to be prepared for and mindful of for any IT teams out there. As I was saying, we certainly have been seeing less and less outages on Black Friday. It's good to see that the number of outages are going down. We've certainly seen the rise of cloud-based hosting, people getting more and more ready for it. But I think what we're finding is certainly now it's not just about staying up, but it's actually about not slowing down. This was another interesting piece of research we did, which you can find on the website, called the Outage Report. We looked at outages across the whole globe, across a range of different industries, and looked at what was causing them, and we found that of all the outages we saw the most outages in the retail sector, and interestingly, 34% of all outages that we saw, over the period of 2016 to 2017 were caused in retail by Black Friday. So a big cause of the actual outages we saw across the industry. Interestingly, of the people that we interviewed, the majority of retailers we speak to are expecting a minimum of a 10 times increase in traffic over that key shopping period. So big spike, still causing a lot of issues. As I mentioned, we are seeing, however, which is good, less complete outages for sites. The cost is obviously still there. For an average retailer, you're looking at an hour's downtime potentially costing around £57,000 and a day being close to 1.3 million in loss for a business. Obviously staggering figures there, which would be potentially much larger if we're looking at some of the biggest retailers here in the UK or abroad. And potentially slightly smaller if you are a smaller business, but nonetheless a really key day to stay up and keep your website available. As I said, consumers now, they're seeing less website outages, so they're certainly expecting your website to be up. But not only are they expecting it to be up, they're expecting it to be fast, and they're expecting that experience to remain good throughout the busy shopping period. 79% of customers said they're less likely to buy from a slow site, with, I think it was 1 in 4 customers suggesting that they're expecting all mobile sites to load in under 4 seconds. 7% of people that were interviewed in this survey actually said that they would potentially not purchase on a site if there was a sort of 1 second delay on their shopping time. So definitely more important than ever to ensure that our websites are not just up through the key shopping period, but also that those shopping sites are actually fast and performant, giving users a good experience on both mobile, desktop and tablet devices. So really important to watch that speed. We here at Intechnica did an interesting piece of research in 2016 with one of the UK's largest retailers, where we looked at how many slowdowns they'd had over the previous year, what their sort of average slowdown was, the impact on conversion, the basket size and the spend. And we managed to actually attribute the slowdowns over that year had cost that business alone £3.36 million in lost revenue. So certainly something to be mindful of there. That's one of the UK's biggest retailers potentially losing out on over £3 million in revenue just due to the impact of slowdowns. So how do you prepare? Obviously we're going to hand over to Jeff Kettle in a minute, who's going to talk about how he got his website ready for a big event. Now they handle some really extreme spikes in traffic. But before we do that, there's a couple of things that we have to help here. There's another webinar we did called the Readiness Report, and one on surviving spikes, where our CTO and published author documented his sort of 6-phase plan to getting prepared. So it just is a summary of that, the real things you should be looking at. Absolutely, you need to be planning to get ready for Black Friday. You need to have the right team in place. You need to make sure you're leaving yourself time to get ready. So you have to make sure you nail the planning. Understand what you're going to do. So scoping is absolutely key. Coming up to Black Friday, you want to make sure the whole business is aligned behind what you are going to do. And that is, everyone needs to understand, what is the marketing team looking to do? Is there going to be TV advertising? Is there going to be, potentially influencer or celebrity marketing? Is there mail shots? And are all these things going to happen at once? Are there potential deals that are likely to cause spikes? Really understanding what's going to be happening, what kind of traffic people are driving to the business, and how much revenue you're looking to take. You absolutely need to understand, what you're getting ready for. And also, I think there's a duty there of the IT and technical teams to be feeding back to the other business divisions what their actual limits are. So understanding how much traffic your website can cope with, so we can say to market, and if it is unrealistic that we can't cope with that, and really everyone being in alignment of what you're doing. Once you have agreed those targets, it's then obviously a case of going through optimization and validation. Really just that continual process of watching, how much can you handle, optimizing the site, tuning your infrastructure. Potentially we see a lot of rerunning of performance tests and tuning of architecture to ensure it can handle as many visitors as possible. Once we get, closer, we want to be looking at potential mitigations. So what can you do? I think the absolute things people need to be aware of is what happens if things start to slow down. You get more traffic than you expected. Build in some mitigations that you can be ready for. They're absolutely key again. Thinking about potentially feature toggling on the site. If your website's starting to get overloaded traffic, what are the easy things that you can do to help it get ready, help it stay up? Have a plan. A lot of the best retailers we work with have a flight manual. So this sort of rolls into preparedness. So before and on the day, having that flight manual of what you do if you were to start to see issues with potentially your infrastructure, a third-party vendor, anyone you're working with, having that plan of what you would do if those things start to happen, so we can respond accordingly, know what we're going to do. And some people even sort of war room it and plan it and practice what could happen. So yeah, getting ready before the day, and certainly on the day, ensuring that, you know, all of the people involved, all of the teams, whether it be the people in the warehouse to the third party supporting the websites, systems integrators and CDN, DDoS providers, all know that you're about to have a big event and are all ready to sort of help you, ensuring you're ready to be able to get in contact with them easily is absolutely key. And then finally, you know, we're going to talk about it a little bit more. Jeff Cat will certainly cover it. We're going to talk about, you know, potentially having some insurance in place to absolutely guarantee that no matter what happens, your website will stay up. So what I'm going to do now is just pass over to Jeff Kettle. He's going to talk through what the challenge he had at JD Williams and how he prepared his website for a really big spike in traffic.
Okay, thanks very much. JD Williams, I've been with them for around 8 years now, so Jeff Cattle, I head up and I'm responsible for all of the IT infrastructure and service delivery. Before we get into the case study around Traffic Defender, let's just take a quick look at us as a business. We're a multi-channel fashion retailer. One of our specialisms historically has been targeting larger sizes. So, for example, we do a size 32 in ladies wear and 5XL in menswear. We're part of the Brown Group, focused on the FTSE 250, and as well as brands such as JD Williams itself. We also have brands such as Simply Be, Giacomo, and others. We are very much multi-channel, so as well as the web, which accounts for some 70% of our order value in a year, we do also have a 1,000-seat contact centre, and we have a growing store network based around the Simply Be and Giacomo brands for us. We do also still have a small core of people respond to mail and literature as magazine supplements, and that accounts for probably just under 10% of the business. So in the next, following the sort of background to JD Williams, I'll talk about the growth of online and mobile at JD Williams. I'll talk about the challenge that was put to us a couple of months ago, and also the approach that was taken and where we use Traffic Defender in response to that challenge, as well as just touching briefly on the results and the outcome. So first of all, just in terms of the growth of online and mobile at JD Williams, if I wind back a few years, the web was certainly 8 years ago was maybe about 30% of the order taking volume. Today, as a channel, we take orders to a value of £500 million a year. It's about 70% of order value at weekends, and we're running 24 websites that are part of our sort of proposition, JD Williams being one of those. Just to give you a sense of scale, we have around 300 unique visitors a day to our website, and we serve some 5 million pages a day. The growth of non-desktop devices has been well documented, well understood. For us, in the first 6 months of this year, compared to the previous 6 months, our desktop visitors were up about 3%, but mobile and tablet were up between them 92 and 132%. In terms of the number of sessions for our web, then about 55% is desktop, with 20% mobile devices and 25% on tablet. However, when it comes to actually placing orders, there's still a distinct trend of people using mobile and tablet to browse and look through around websites, but there's still 70% of our customers use the traditional desktop approach. So the challenge, a couple of months ago, the marketing director came to me and made me aware of an investment that the business had made in primetime television advertising slots. Historically, as a business, while we have run adverts, we've not run them in primetime slots. Our day-to-day processing and even year-to-year processing at peak times has had some fairly predictable peaks. So, for example, where we're running at serving 5 million pages today, at Cyber Monday would see us serving 8 million pages. Apart from a brief mention in primetime television in 2007, which sort of flattened websites in under a minute, we'd generally not got much experience of this, but equally we were wary of the consequences. So as it says there, we were potentially, without having much detailed knowledge or experience, we were being asked to prepare for a spike that was 40 to 50 times greater than had previously been seen. We took a three-tier approach to this particular challenge, the first of which was just simply building out our existing infrastructure to make it cater for as much traffic as possible. Where on Cyber Monday, our JD Williams site would be serving around historically 26 page requests a second. We were aiming to size it at around 1,000 page requests a second. The other two aspects of our approach were one, really to add capacity to our old infrastructure or our current infrastructure, as you like, just to make sure that if the new infrastructure specifically for JD Williams had a hit, we could still cope with some traffic. But then the third area was actually a requirement for some traffic throttling over and above what we could actually handle on our sites. So this is where Traffic Defender actually came in. The Traffic Defender itself, as Andy was referencing, has the ability to configure different pools, and we set it up such that all the traffic to JD Williams flow through Traffic Defender. We had 3 pools in there. So one was for customers who were already logged in, who would continue to go to our sites, and customers who'd already got sessions would again be allowed into the site directly. However, in the third pool, which was the rest of the traffic, we had a session limit set such that only traffic would be allowed through to the site if it was below that particular threshold. In terms of the results, we actually on a Friday and Saturday ran adverts in Emmerdale, Coronation Street, and X Factor, and as it says there, in terms of the spikes that we actually saw, we peaked up significantly to around 42 times the baseline within a minute. And in that time, Traffic Defender kicked in for a minute and a half, queued up 670 visitors with the holding page you see over to the right. So customers were given a view of where they were positioned in the queue, and also that the screen would attempt to, or the page would attempt to refresh and let them through within a certain period of time. Overall, we were very pleased with the outcome. The site stayed up. Customers didn't have a poor experience. You could argue that it was still a little poor in as much as they didn't get through to the site, but they had a controlled experience, and they had visibility that they could see that we knew they were there waiting to come onto the site. In terms of the future for JD Williams, those particular adverts continue to run right now, but going forward, we've now got the flexibility to cater for another advert in November, which will be Christmas themed, and we're also well poised for some of the biggest shopping days of the year, including Cyber Monday that's coming up. So that was it in summary. As part part of a three-tier approach to responding to a prime time advertising campaign. Traffic Defender played its part in picking up on the peak that we weren't able to service, albeit for a short period of time, and almost ensuring or helping us keep the attention of customers for longer. So I think with that, I'll actually pass this back to Intechnica.
Awesome, great. So I think that was a really sort of useful sort of recording there of JD Williams and the issues that they faced. Certainly the challenge that Jeff had to deal with, a very big one, and one that he managed to get through very successfully with that sort of three-tiered approach. I think it's really interesting to look at what retailers do around this. You can see, you know, obviously there's a couple of options that people have today, and obviously the first would be to scale out. But, you know, we work with a lot of retailers for who this certainly, you know, leads to a lot of unnecessary cost, potentially just on infrastructure, kit and licenses. You know, so what we're really trying to help people do is, you know, you don't want to be spending more and more costs just to get through Black Friday. And, you know, potentially we've seen in the past some retailers really damage the profitability of the day by scaling out and having to run that infrastructure for a whole year. And you know, look, that infrastructure is great, scaling out is great, but what we do find is that there are those spikes that are sometimes just so big, so unpredictable, driven by, you know, as you hear JD Williams there, TV advertising and prime time shows such as the X Factor, things like celebrity endorsement tweets, you know, potentially a mail shop with an affiliate, anything that could potentially spike demand. You know, potentially causes you, even though you have that extra capacity, can just take you above, you know, and can lead to potentially, you know, at the worst case, downtime or slowdown, and absolutely what everyone is trying to avoid, given the really big opportunity on the table. You know, so what we can see is, you know, a lot of people will move, you know, with the cloud, potentially infrastructure that scales, you know, which is a great way of saving costs. But obviously, one of the issues with that is, you know, typical scaling of infrastructure and pre-worming can take anywhere between 1 to sort of 6 minutes, depending on who you have as a provider. And what that means is, you know, the spikes that Jeff was talking about there, you know, potentially 40 to 50 times your normal sort of size spike and your normal peak, certainly will overwhelm even the most highly scalable, you know, auto-scaling infrastructure, because it simply can't spin up in that time. And what we tend to see when that happens is, you know, complete real pain for anyone in that situation, because not only will the site not be scaling out the problem, but you'll see it go down, and then once it's down, it's very hard to bring it back up, even with that scaling out. So that's where we come in. Jeff mentioned his use of Traffic Defender there, really to, you know, scale out his infrastructure to deal with what he knew with, but then we're there to help through the really big, really extreme spikes. We deal with people who have up to 1 million concurrent users at any one time, so we're there ready to handle that spike, no matter how big or small. So, you know, just a quick one on how we do that. As we said, that typical regular day, the infrastructure will be fine. People will be browsing through the site, coming to it and checking out. What we tend to see on a busy day, when things start to go wrong, we'll start to see some people struggling to get into the site, some intermittent failure and slowdown. We'll start to be losing some customers on the site, and that can, of course, start to really damage the user experience and impact on the amount of money we're taking. At the worst case, and what we typically see, is the Guardian said 15 major retail brands last year falling down. We see a website that tends to fill up and up until the point at which it can't cope with anyone at all. Then we're not only upsetting all the people trying to get on who can't get onto that website, but also the people that are actually on shopping, have money in their baskets, waiting to check out. We're losing all of that revenue. So not only are we stopping anyone else getting in, we're actually losing all the potential combined revenue of all these people here waiting to actually check out. What do we do? So, as Jeff said, Traffic Defender sits in front of your infrastructure. It is not JavaScript, so we implement via DNS. So we protect all of that infrastructure, all of the hardware, and we're ready to deal with the spike no matter how big. We ensure that no matter how big the spike is, we only allow the traffic through that your website can handle. So this means what we do is at the time of a real big peak in traffic, we're allowing your website to transact at the maximum possible throughput. We're protecting all of the users on that website who have carts full of stuff ready to purchase, ensuring they get a really good experience, and slowly starting to queue anyone up that's in that sort of waiting period while we keep it up. So as opposed to, if at peak you start to slow down and upset all the people trying to get in and the people on, lose that basket, we're making sure we guarantee that your platform actually takes as much revenue as possible. What do we do? What does it mean for the customer? So what we show is a completely customizable white label queue page. And what we're doing on this page is we're giving people updates, and we can show, what the estimated time to entry is, how long it's going to be till they get there, what their position is, and how long the queue is, really trying to build that suspense. There's never any branding from us on here. The user, still sees your URL. They feel like they've never left your site. And it can really, really be beneficial to businesses. It builds a lot of anticipation. And what we see when we work with retail sites in particular, when the queue actually does kick in, the first thing to mention is we're only kicking people into the queue at the point at which your website would fall down or completely fall over. When that happens, what we tend to see is certainly, on average, more people in the site than are actually queuing, but those people that do go through the queue we'll tend to find record-breaking customer sales, record-breaking revenue for a platform, and the people that are actually in the queue, we're seeing a lot less complaints, we're seeing increased sales, we're seeing the customers actually, because they're waiting, when they get through, spend longer on the site, and we're also seeing increased basket sizes as well, because those people have been sat in queue, building anticipation, so once they get into the website, they're really keen to look through, find something that they want to buy. So we're really helping people maximize the revenue they can make, and for some businesses actually helping them to take more money than they would without us. As I mentioned before, the solution is completely, no code changes. We sit in front of your website, typically behind any DDoS or CDN protection, but in front of all your infrastructure, making sure that no matter how big that spike is, we can handle it. We can get people set up really quickly. So typical implementation time can be around a couple of days. If not, we've done it in the same day for some people, and we can do all of that with no code changes. All we need to do is simply point our solution in via a DNS change at typically a CDN layer. So we can get people up. If you're having any issues, we can certainly help there. In terms of what next and what can you do, we're going to move to the Q&A very shortly. Just a couple of kind of things to wrap up. As I mentioned, we do quite a bit of research throughout the year. One of the really interesting bits for anyone, potentially on this webinar who's thinking, how ready are they? We did analysis of the top 400 websites in the UK, looking for things like the page rate, page size, potential quick wins for them. And what we found was that of those 400, 31% of those sites could really benefit from some quick wins. So if you want to understand, where your website came in the top 400 retailers in the UK, and if there are any quick wins for you, potentially ahead of Black Friday, we can absolutely help you out there. Do get in touch, and we can show you where you are, and if there are any quick wins for you to take advantage of ahead of peak. Finally, obviously, we've discussed Traffic Defender a bit there. We've heard about how Jeff Cattle used it very successfully to deal with JD Williams' real steep spikes in traffic. Certainly something you couldn't cope without it. So if anyone does want to protect their website this Black Friday, and again guarantee that revenue and really maximize their Black Friday, do get in touch and book your free trial. More than happy to speak to all of you. For those of you still on, yes, we're about to move to the Q&A. So if anyone does have any questions, please do submit them now. We're about to just move to the Q&A with our perf expert, James Billingham. So yeah, keep those questions coming in. We're about to do them. Thank you.